top 10 are driving so well and so fast, the others are getting into strife trying to keep up.
Well, Garth Wixon was in fact in 7th place when that happened. It was just terribly unfortunate, as young Stephen Harrington pointed out. The car in front seized his engine. One of those things, it suddenly stopped, and 2 other cars ran into it. We lost 3 cars effectively from the front of the grid. They're now trying desperately. They're making good use of those STP stitches to patch the car up. That's making use of a sponsor's product fairly well.
Race leader Peter Brock, and there are now only 4 cars on the leading lap with Brock, or 3 others with Brock. Brock is 37.3 seconds ahead of Alan Grice, the Recar Commodore, then 25 seconds to Dick Johnson in the Palmer Prudential Falcon, and the 4th car, the last remaining car on the lead lap, is the second dealer team car driven by Gary Scott.
We've got, of course, the driver in this car, Larry Perkins. Grice is still running alone. That means at the end of the race, Peter Block will be driving car 5 and Alan Brown will be in car 4.
Top 10.
And that could have a bearing on the overall result.
Top 10 printout from the Channel 7 computer, the input from Texas Instruments, and you can see the positions there with only one of the lower class 3-litre cars in contention in that situation at the moment. That's car 56, which is being driven by a Japanese combination.
Yes, we lost car 55, George Fury. We're not sure what happened. He's parked it on top of the mountain. The turbocharged Bluebird is out of the race. Larry Perkins has certainly got a fire going. He's going very hard into the pits in the meantime. It's Dick Johnson in, and he's going to hand over to John French. It's over again to Chris Economaki.
Chris just moving into position as the action starts surrounding Dick Johnson's car.
Take it away, Chris Economaki.
Down here in the pit side, Dick Johnson is turning over to John French, and only 2 hours and 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello. Okay. All right,
that was a quick stop.
2 hours and 25 minutes into the race, you've made your 2nd stop. Are we burning too much fuel?
No, it's not so much, oh, pardon me, it's not so much the fuel, Chris. It's the oil, you know, it's that problem that we've had all week, basically, has come back again. And it's worn out the rings. First, you got no rings in it, but these old Henrys run with nothing in them anyway.
Well, you put new rings in overnight, right?
Yeah, and the trouble was they were Holden rings. No wonder they don't work.
Ah! Well, it's nice you can take it so lightly. I'm touching your back of your uniform. You're soaking wet. How physically demanding is it today?
Oh, it's pretty hot out there, and, you know, with the fumes coming inside the car, it gets a bit hard, but no problem. I feel great.
Let me express our thanks and appreciation for your in-car camera work for us.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Okay, Dick Johnson, a happy fellow, despite the fact that his old Henry is running without rings. Back to the box.
And who needs rings, eh, Chris? Well, he's got John French driving the car now. He's got to catch this man, Larry Perkins, in car 5. And he also has to catch the man running in 2nd spot, Alan Grice. He's got 2 Commodores in front. Maybe they've got Ford rings in their engines.
Johnson Falcon slipped only 1 spot on the track during that very quick pit stop, so it's still the dealer team Commodore of Peter Brock, Larry Perkins at the wheel in front from Alan Grice in the Recar Commodore. Then the 2nd dealer team Commodore driven by Gary Scott, followed by John French in the Palmer Prudential Falcon.
Larry Perkins making good moves here in traffic, and he's got a lot of traffic he's weaving in, inside and outside of. A lap or so back, he almost had an anxious moment there on the top of McPhillips Park. Got it right out into the marbles on the outside of the circuit. As I mentioned earlier, we'll occasionally during the day keep the timer going and bring you up to date with the lap times being afforded the Brock car, number 05, for all you people around Australia who entered the winter Commodore SS competition.
Larry Perkins came originally from Coangi in Western Victoria, a member of a great motoring family. His father and his uncle were great rally drivers. Larry took up racing, tried all different sorts of categories in this country, went overseas, drove in Formula 1, has come back to Australia now, and for the last few seasons has partnered Peter Jansen in this race. This year, he's moved into the Holden dealer team as co-driver for Peter Brock, and he's doing a great job keeping the car in front, keeping him well ahead of Alan Grice, 2nd spot, nursing it nicely. I know that Peter Brock has a very healthy respect for the abilities of Larry Perkins. We've got the clock running now. See how Larry Perkins goes around the track. And if you've entered the clock rock competition, see how close the times that Larry Perkins are putting up compared to those that you submitted in your entry to try and win the SS Commodore.
So it's a reasonable first prize, isn't it? A new Commodore SS. Some lucky viewer who entered the competition and has been watching our telecast on the 7 network around Australia is going to win a new Commodore SS. Good luck to all those who entered.
I wonder if they guessed a fast enough speed there. If they were going on previous years, they might have said, oh, maybe they'll do the lap record. Of course, they've been way under in practice, and I suspect we'll have a new record during the race as well. Haven't seen official times for the sort of speeds that are being given around here, but I'm sure they'll be well under the previous mark, which was held by Peter Brock when he drove a Tirana back in 1979. That was the previous best, 2 minutes 20.9. Dick Johnson got close last year, 2 minutes 20.98, only 800ths away. But the record stands to Brock, but he was 3.5 seconds under that time in practice.
We do have an unofficial 2:20.5 for Brock earlier in the race today.
Well, so that should be sufficient to put his name, or to retain his name in the record books, just to make them change the time and the make of car from Tirana to Commodore. Larry Perkins always was quick through here. People who used to watch on this most selected part of the circuit, those with a real interest in the handling of cars, used to always go to the S's, reckon that Larry Perkins was one of the good ones to watch. David Hobbs was smooth and very fast. Larry Perkins was very fast, often lifted his wheels up a little bit. But he's going through there quickly and being particularly adept at threading his way through traffic. Well, a critical stage of the race, co-drivers in command. Larry Perkins, very highly regarded in the lead car. Alan Grice still in his car, hasn't handed over to Alan Brown yet. He'll have to do the last stint because there's a limit to how long one driver can run. Can't run the whole race, can't even run beyond a certain proportion, about 2/3. One driver must at least cover about 1/3 of the distance of the race. John French in car 17, running in 3rd place for Dick Johnson. I know Dick has a very high opinion of John French. There are 3 drivers. There we are, 2:23. If he can maintain that sort of time, lap after lap, they won't catch him. They won't catch him. In the meantime, you may recall earlier in the race, we saw a car come into the pits the wrong way around. The driver was Ron Wanless. He's in the pits with Chris Economaki.
Ron, you made an emergency pit stop earlier. What was the reason?
Well, it was my own fault, Chris. I braked a little late going into Hell's Corner and I touched the Armco up there and it just didn't, felt a bit wobbly, so I just pulled in here just to check it because there's a bit of fiberglass on the wheel.
But you came in the pits the wrong way. That's a no-no, right?
Well, I could have been, but I haven't been in this game all that long and I didn't quite know. I just thought anyway, get in the pits. I reckon there wouldn't be many other people there at about that time anyway.
Did you get a penalty for coming in the wrong way?
Well, they haven't caught me yet, so nobody's talked to me yet. You're the first guy that's brought it up.
Okay, you didn't want anybody to know about it. What's the track like? Is it the surface? Any oil, debris around the track at all?
It's quite dusty up there and turning Castrol Corner going on the mountain. It's very dusty and over the top where a couple of guys have looked upside down, it's sort of, yeah, it's not real good, you know.
Okay, you're going to get all your problems fixed?
Yeah, they're just about right now. We're going to go now.
Okay.
Lost a bit of time, but
good luck to you. And back to the box.
Thank you very much. Ron Wanless was the driver who was involved in an incident with Kevin Bartlett last year. If you remember your races, Kevin stalked off the pits to have a talk to the driver, and he looked very aggressive. When he found it was Ron Wanless, he came back, because Ron used to be a boxer. He looks a bit contented and happier now. We'll be returning with all the action here at Mount Panorama in just a few moments. And following Alan Grice is Gary Rogers, who's really got the bit between his teeth. Gary Rogers, his car has lost a lot of time with Ron Wanless having that incident which brought him into the pits. But he now has himself right on the tail of Alan Grice. Alan Grice running second. Gary Rogers trying desperately hard to stay within sight and to try and get back into contention in this race. They've lost a lot of time, but there's no greater fighter in this race than Gary Rogers. Look how he's going in pursuit of Alan Grice, but he's not making up ground because Grice really is driving superbly. The first man to ever lap Mount Panorama in a touring car at 100 miles per hour. Won pole position yesterday, has a car with which he's very happy, a very relaxed and contented Alan Grice. But he's doing a second long stint at the wheel, wants to get back up where he can put Alan Brown in the car, his co-driver, and give him a chance of winning this race. So he's trying to shave tenths of a second all the time, and in hot pursuit is Gary Rogers, who has to make up a couple of laps because they lost that time in repairing their car. Ron Wander's told you how he slid wide on the end of pit straight, hit the fence, came into the pits in the wrong direction, had the car repaired, so they've lost time and lost distance. And a great battle between two of the leading Commodore exponents, Allan Grice running in second spot, and behind him, Gary Rogers.
The critical pit stop for Grice obviously will be the changeover stop, where Alan Brown comes into, or Grice comes in for Brown to take over. It has been suggested that Alan Brown, of course, isn't as quick as Alan Grice, and perhaps they may pay the penalty of that later in the race. But then again, Alan Brown owns the cars.
Well, Alan is quick. I was talking to Alan Grice. He said that he thinks Alan Brown has a trouble on circuits that go to the right, like Amaru. He just has difficulty going that way as quickly as to the left. This is a left-hand circuit, and Alan Brown might find it much more to his liking. John Goss's car, with Bob Tullius driving, is in front of him. The bonnet has come loose again. I'm sure that the clip has broken free, the mounting for the clip, which is why the bonnet is lifting up on the big XJ S-Jaguar V12. See how it's lifting again at the back? It'll do no more than irritate the driver. It won't flap up because the wind pressure will keep it down, but the bonnet has come loose again on the Jaguar. One of the Capris running in the class for 3-litre cars, about to be engulfed, first of all by Alan Grice, then by Bob Tullius in the Jaguar, and then by Gary Rogers. Tullius doing a good job, the American.
Yes, very good.
First time on the circuit, but a fellow who's been around many times is the bespectacled Larry Perkins, driving for Peter Brock in 05. He's driven most things in his time. Larry came up from the school where they don't always believe in gloves. Probably finds it very hot there. You can see Perkins' hands bare on the wheel, which is unusual. Peter Brock, of course, has the long red gauntlets. Larry Perkins driving the car barehanded. Comes towards the JPS bridge, the braking marker, the last 350, slows it down through the gears, keeps the car well to the right. Onto pit straight, just puts the wheel over the white line and over the second one, takes a bit more of the extra road there, goes past the VIP boxes, the pit's on the left, and once again goes up Mountain Straight. Like Bob Holden's escort that he passed. Bob, who was one of 3 drivers in the race who ran in the very first Armstrong 500 back in 1960. Recorded his fastest ever laps in practice, so it just shows that some drivers get better as they go on. Bob is now in his 50s. Imagine what it'd be like when he's 80.
No pension for Bob. Up to the cutting now as we follow race cam inside the 05 Marlborough Holden dealer team Commodore. Larry Perkins at the wheel.
Big spoiler on one of the Mazda RX-7s. They really are an exaggerated shape there, just to capture air, to give a slightly sharper profile to the car so that they get a better flow through the air. Larry Perkins working hard. You can see the corrections, constantly working on that wheel. That rest room, the talk up on top of the mountain. And he's going quickly too. An occasional glance at the instruments, looking at the mirrors to see who's behind him. No one's about to overtake him, but he must always be conscious of what's going on. Coming up towards the top, he'd be near McPhillamy corner at the moment. He'll take a little bit of a bite to the left. Then when you see him braking with the pedal, there he is. Now he's coming down the mountain. The left foot on the brake, he may have even changed without the clutch sound. Gets the revs precisely right. His feet are busier than a ballet dancer dancing on an ant's nest. With bare feet. Up to third. Down the mountain. Back to second. This will be through Forest Elba. He'll be about to come out on the straight. He'll go up for third in a moment. Boom into third. Around the corner. He'll pick up fourth about this point, and then flat out up to about 6,500, 6,800 revs along the straight. Larry Perkins in 05. Leading the race. He'll do a long stint, hand over then to Peter Brock, who'll finish the race off. So it's Commodore's leading at the moment.
Some more pictures from Larry Perkins' race cam.
But very close to these cars, Mike, we have a couple of Mazda RX-7s, Alan Moffat, Alan Jones, well placed. The Nissan Turbo Bluebird, the Samy and Machino, who again well placed. So becoming a very interesting race. The power and capacity out front. Some of the The newer type cars, rotary engines and turbocharged Fords, are very, very well placed.
The type of race, Evan, that the winner will possibly come from the 3:30 mark until the race finish. I don't think this race will be fully clarified until the last 3/4 of an hour. Let's take a look now, courtesy of Texas Instruments, of the top 10 in the race. Peter Brock, Larry Perkins in Commodore number 5, leading from Allan Bryson Brown. In 3rd place is the Harvey Scott entry. 4th, Dick Johnson and John French. 5th, the Mazda of Moffat and Katayama. 6th place, the Bluebird of Asimi and Ashino. 7th, the BMW of Richards and Hobbs. 8th place, held down by Jansen and Parsons. 9th place, the Commodore, Benson Brown and Charlie O'Brien. And 10th place, the Jones boys, Barry and Allen. We'll take a break and return to the great race.
Retirees in today's race. John, what goes through your mind when you suddenly realize that the race is over for you long before it should be?
Well, it's disappointing from our point of view, Chris, because a lot of people have put a lot of money, a lot of effort behind our car. The City of Townsville and the Bissell Sweeper Company got into it, sponsoring the car at the last minute, and it must be disappointing for them not to see the car running around.
Does it give you a feeling that you've let them down?
In a way, yes, of course. Whenever you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're always letting people down, but we, like anybody, can only do our best. There's a lot more professional crews out there not running around the track at the moment.
When did the project work begin for the Bathurst, the James Hardy 1000 1982? How long have you been working on the car?
Well, we've been looking at this race since we bought the car. It's Alan Moffat's car that he ran in 1980. The dip 3 laps. And we've basically been preparing for this since we bought that in March. So it's been a very long haul for us.
What's the budget been for this challenge?
Very small. We've done it on a shoestring. We've not had the funds that the other teams have had available to them, so we're pretty happy with the fact that we did a time that last year would have put us 6th on the grid in the top 10.
Well, so you're out of this year. Will you be back next year?
You better believe it, Chris.
Okay, here's a man that's coming back next year, back to the bottom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Followed Bill O'Brien. They're having a bit of a lose, but managed to get back on the road again without too many problems. Number 40, the McLeod Dane RX-7, the Strongbow car, getting stronger as the hours go by.
Remember, Mike, this car ran terribly well in the Perrier Gold Cup at Oran Park at the end of the 100 laps there. I think they finished in 3rd spot, and it could still be going just as strongly here at the end of this James Hardy 1000.
Well, follow the car up to the mountain. Dane at the wheel now. Cloud drove the first stint.
They're in 11th spot at the present time in the outright positions, although 2 laps down on the race leader, Peter Brock, Larry Perkins.
And going through there on the inside. Very, very quickly indeed as we swing across the top through McPhillamy Park. There's the Rogers Wanless car with Gary Rogers at the wheel. Very, very fast yesterday, made Hardy's heroes. In fact, it's seldom that Gary Rogers doesn't make a top 10 qualifying berth at Mount Panorama. There's Peter Dane at the wheel of car 40, the Strongbow Mazda RX-7. Running strongly, as Gary said, 11th place in the field at the moment. Cackle of the RX-7, the gear shift. Open spaces at Conrod Straight. Not a great deal of traffic ahead of them as they head down there, and the throttle buried all the way to the floor. You can really hear the engines twisting as they peak along Conrod Straight.
That three-car Commodore pulling right away from the Mazda RX-7 down towards the bottom of Conrod. The Strongbow car will close up some under brakes around the corner. A lighter vehicle and easier on the brakes. You can afford to leave it a little later. Up under the Hardy Bridge, and there's the Recar vehicle just disappearing off the bottom right-hand corner of the screen.
Their own distinctive cackle, the RX-7s. After our commentary team has spent 4 or 5 days here at Bathurst, we almost go home deaf to the noise of these little RX-7s cackling away in the pit area. Listen to the high-pitched shrill as we follow Dane up into Castrol, the right-hander. It's like an old Mustang fighter plane. He's going well though. Roger's still managing to pull away. Cabbage entry there, number 30. Dane has closed up on him through the cutting. Heading up now to the top of the mountain.
70 laps gone in the 1982 James Hardy 1000. Still car 5, the dealer team Commodore with Larry Perkins at the wheel, and doing very well because he's holding pretty much the lead that he had over Alan Grice when he assumed control of the car. 34 seconds ahead of car 4, the Recar Commodore and Alan Grice. And there's a further 1 minute and 11 seconds, 71 seconds, between Alan Grice and the third place getter on the track, and that's car 25, the second dealer team vehicle being driven by Gary Scott. They're the only 3 cars on the front running lap at the present time.
Well, we've been noticing how quickly off Cabbage's car really lifting a wheel there. Gary Scott is the 3rd car in that group of 3. We'll see how the Mazdas are so quick over the mountain down into the dipper. And as soon as they hit Conrod Straight, you'll be able to see just how quickly Scott can pull them in.
4th place in the race, and a lap down at the moment is car 17, the Palmer Prudential Falcon. John French at the wheel, followed in 5th spot by the Stuyvesant Mazda, Alan Moffat, and then car 56, the Nissan Bluebird, being driven by Hasimi and Hoshino, the Japanese combination. Hoshino at the wheel at the present time. They're the top 6 cars. From there on, it's 2 laps down to car 31, the BMW with David Hobbs at the wheel at the present time, and he's being very hotly pursued on the track at the moment by car 3, the Commodore, the Cadbury Schweppes entry, being driven by David Parsons.
Gary Scott moving here to the outside. McLeod, I don't think saw him.
Oh,
has now.
Getting a little tight in there.
But Dane continues. So he's able to keep that gap on Scott down Conrod Straight. Now Scott starts to pull to the outside. You'll see him
look at
able
the
to race up, pass him, and now dip down on the approach to Castrol. Rough little piece of the circuit just here, as you'll see the car's bottom. So Scott goes through, and Dane there still follows him up the mountain.
Apparently the damage to the front of the car caused when John Harvey was driving hasn't really caused much of a problem. It's just cosmetic. There may be some interruption to the airflow, but it doesn't seem to be hampering the car. And Gary Scott, the young Queensland driver, really is doing a first-class job. An enormous load on the shoulders of the co-drivers in these critical stages of the race. He's doing well. Threading his way through the traffic, maintaining the fast laps that he's required to do, keeping the car in one piece. And maybe, just maybe, John Harvey will have the good run that he's lacked, that he's missed so badly in the last couple of years. He's had tyres go, been involved in other people's accidents, and really hasn't had a good result here. Undoubtedly one of Australia's best drivers, and has been for many years. And Gary Scott, the son of an illustrious father, the late Clint Scott, Queensland racing driver, is really doing the team proud, bringing the car down through the mountain now. He's just pulling away from Peter Dane and the RX-7. The most popular car in the race is the Commodore. There were 17 of these entered in the race. Not all of them started, and certainly not all of them still running, particularly after 3 of them were eliminated in one crash on lap 2 when the car in front seized the motor and the others piled into it. Ford Falcon, the next most popular. 14 cars were entered, and then 13 of the Mazda RX-3. So they're the dominant makes of cars in this year's race. No longer do we have the separate classes such as used to exist, this time just divided into 2, big cars and smaller cars. But no little cars. 3 litre is the limit this year. And it's the big cars leading the way as you're watching the great race. We'll be returning to the action in just a few moments.
Gary Scott. There's Alan Moffat, car 43. He's in 5th position on the track at the present time, just behind Dick Johnson. A lap down on the leading trio. Looks like Gary Wilmington there, is it?
Yes, he's slowed right down and just creeping down a very precarious... Oh, you've got a flat tyre on his inside left wheel. You'll see it, the left-hand side, the back is flat, and he's taking it down as slowly as he can. Doesn't want to go too slowly because he'll lose a lot of time, but if he goes too hard, he might damage the suspension. Alan Moffat running in 5th place. He'll hand over to the Japanese co-driver, Katayama, a 42-year-old veteran who is the most experienced Mazda driver in the world, and we'll see how he goes to maintain the pace that Allan Moffat has said. It could be a winning pace. He's going very well, driving a very heady race. And an interesting event in a statistical sense. The leading 10, there are 5 Commodores, including the first 3, Perkins, Grice and Scott. There are 2 Mazdas. Allan Moffat's running in 5th spot, this one. And the Barry Jones car, as we see one of the Camaros having some attention to its teeth by the look of it. Looks like a dentist drill being inserted there, and a lot of work going on. The car, of course, did hit the fence earlier on. Car number 6 is the Ron Dixon, Bob Stevens entry. They've got it back in the race, which is something of a miracle after the early damage, but it's in the pits at the moment.
Moffat and Grice must be the only 2 original drivers still in the cars on the track.
Only those in contention, certainly. They'll both have to hand over and let other people finish for them.
Very soon.
Yes. Just to run through the statistics, the second Mazda is Allan Jones and Barry Jones, and then there are single entries for among the top 10. Dick Johnson and John French, who's out on the track at the moment in the Ford Falcon. They're running 4th.
31 in the pits, David Hobbs, the BMW.
Well, he is running in 7th place, and we must keep an eye on David Hobbs, going so well. The only BMW in the group, and here comes the
Queensland.
Yeah, the Queensland entry. Very nicely presented car, but
car number 46 has been hit.
Yeah, Ross Burbridge, is it?
Yes, Ross Burbridge and Craig Kinmonth.
Well, just creeping back into the pits, he certainly has outdistanced Gary Wilmington with the flat tyre. No, Gary's got into the pits and is changing the wheel. He looks as though he wants to go into the back. In the meantime, Allan Moffat is just circulating rapidly, neatly. I think he's out of fuel.
Yes,
Once he needs a push, he can't get in. He doesn't have the energy to climb the speed hump. In fact, he's made to one side to get around it.
Sybil's restaurant entry from Brisbane as needs a bit of fuel.
He could do with a second helping, I'd say. Now, there are certain limits to whether you can be pushed in without being penalised. We've seen over the years gone by some drivers making the heroic effort to get their cars in there, notably Doug Chivers, the year that he and Peter Brock lost this race when Doug ran out of fuel and had to push the car in. No assistance was allowed. There's plenty of it coming this time. He just reached the margin of the pits, and once that happens, he's okay. He's giving instructions there, behaving like a tram driver, telling him where to go. He's been pushed up to his pits. Unfortunately, he's right at the end of the pit straight, so it's a long haul for the volunteers who've run down to give him the lift into the pits. One Mazda in the pits and not circulating. Allan Moffat out on the track and going so well, running in 5th place.
Here's Allan Moffat, car number 43, the Peter Stuyvesant Mazda RX-7. The short pit straight. Car has been running extremely strong here all day, as it did last year. Obviously different.
Well, Allan running in 5th place. The car's immediately behind him as we continue to watch Allan Moffat and the Mazda circulate. Is Hoshini, the Japanese, in the Turbo Bluebird, and then David Hobbs in the BMW. And here's David Parsons, who was running in 8th place into the pits. Whether Peter Jansen will take over, I don't know. No, Jansen's talking to him. He's certainly not kitted up for the race. They're looking under the bonnet, maybe just to check for oil. I don't know what the problem there might be. But they've got all ends open, back, front, putting fuel in there. You can see tyres going on. David Parsons, who has driven very well, the young Tasmanian, staying in the car. He's running in 8th place. The Clive Benson Brown and Gary Rogers entry, which has got up to 9th, which is remarkable, bearing in mind the problems they had. And in car number 10 is Allan Jones in car 27. So it's Benson Brown and Charlie O'Brien, I think, not as I called it. Gary Rogers, he hasn't made the top 10 yet, although he's trying desperately hard out on the track. Well, it's a fairly long stop, seeing they're not making a driver change. So one of the crew has time to polish the windscreen. As you've noted from our through the windscreen race cam shots, it gets pretty insect splattered out there. David Parsons going fairly rapidly over these speed bumps. I think a few of the drivers might be spoken to. You think after the incidents which happened at Sandown involving this driver, Allan Moffat, incident which cost him the race with 2 penalties of 1 minute each, that a few of the drivers would take those speed bumps very, very seriously. But under the stimulation of race time, they see that they've got to get back on the track and they want to save a few tenths of a second, and they go as hard as they dare. Look at the lines of Allan Moffat, really using up all the road, but not being rough on the car at all, driving with beautiful precision. Takes the right-hand line. The flag marshal signaling to the man he's overtaken that there was a fast car coming. The waved blue flag means that if the blue flag is held stationary, it means there's a car behind you. when it's waved, it means there's someone trying to pass. The fellow soon got the message, and Moffat speared past in the peripheral ported Mazda RX-7.
Well, money's beginning to pile up, prize money in this race too, Mike Raymond.
Yes, Gary, the first of the Wins Friction Proofing Awards worth $500 to the overall outright leader. And the third hour of the race has just been won by the Marlborough Holden dealer team, Peter Brock and Larry Perkins. They're out in front and doing quite nicely indeed. There's also another 500 going to the overall leader on the 81st lap, courtesy of Motorola Communications, and Wins Friction Proofing, of course, have similar amounts of $500 for the leader on the 4th, 5th and 6th hour.
And of course, Alan Grice picked up 1,000 for leading through the first lap, on top of his 10,000 for pole and his 5,000 for being the first man to break the 100 miles per hour average around here.
And who said it was a dog's life in the pits here at Mount Panorama?
Boom, boom.
By the way, I notice over in the recar pit, they're getting set up, ready for a pit stop. So we'll have to keep an eye on Alan Grice, because I reckon that's where the action's going to be next.
Well, if that happens and Alan Grice hands over, then it'll be this man, Alan Moffat, who will have the honour, if that's the right word, of being the longest surviving driver on the track. The others have all handed over to their co-drivers. He's going as far as he can, and then we'll let his Japanese teammate, Katayama, a highly experienced driver, take over and finish the race for him.
Grice hasn't been able to make any ground, you know, on Larry Perkins in the last 10 laps. The gap between the two of them is still 37 seconds. Perkins in front in the dealer team Commodore.
Grice stayed in the car to try and whittle that lead back. He hasn't been successful, not through want of trying, but because Perkins has driven so well. He's really done everything that Peter Brock could have asked of him. Car 41, Stephen Brook, who was sharing that black BMW with Denny Hulme, pulled over to let Alan Moffat through, did it very quickly and neatly. Moffat draws away Stephen Brook. One of the greater younger drivers in Australia, really has made his mark in series production racing. Last year in an Alpha Stud, where he won his class in every race. This year in an RX-7, which he has almost repeated the performance, except he now wins races outright. Frank Gardner invited him to join the team this year in BMW. He's driving the 635 that Jim Richards used to drive, that Alan Grice drove last year, and in fact put in the sand trap at the end of this straight, which put him and David Hobbs out of contention. So it's the older BMW that Stephen Brook and Denny Hulme are driving. The new one, with Jim Richards and the Englishman David Hobbs driving, is doing exceptionally well and right up into 7th place.
I note also that the Masterton Homes Ford, young Steve Masterton, a former Rookie of the Year winner here at Mount Panorama, still percolating quite nicely. And whilst we're bringing race cam pictures to you, one of his sponsors, Sydney radio station 2WS, are carrying reports from the car, so he'll be kept busy as well.
Talking of Rookies of the Year, the man who's sharing this car with Stephen Brook is Denny Hulme. He's 46 years of age. He won the World Motor Racing Championship in 1967, and because this is his first outing at Mount Panorama, he could be Rookie of the Year, which would be a nice little bonus for Denny Hulme in what one might describe as the enjoyable twilight of his career.
3-litre class placings in the race at this stage, being led by the Nissan Bluebird of Hassimi. Second spot in that class, Barry Seaton and Don Smith in the Capri car 50, and third spot is car 54, another Capri driven by Les Gross and Alan Cant. They're the top 3 placings in the 3-litre class at this stage of the race, 75 laps down.
Stephen Brook in car number 41, the car he's sharing with Denny Hulme. He was the TAA Formula Ford champion driver. Then, because of the difficult state of motor racing in Australia in a financial sense, he couldn't afford to go from what is supposed to be the springboard to full single-seater racing. He had to step into series production cars. Drove last year in the Perrier Alpha Sud. As I said before, won his class in every race, which is an outstanding result. Then moved into a RX-7 again for Perrier this year, and Frank Gardner, one of the really wise heads of motor racing. Oh, there's Denny Hulme at the wheel, is it? No, it's not. It's Perrier. I thought it was Hulme. That's Stephen Brook at the wheel. And Frank Gardner invited him to drive in the car. He found he wasn't as quick around Mount Panorama as he would have liked. Frank Gardner said, go as fast as you feel safe doing, and when you feel better about it, go faster. He's going quickly at the moment, isn't he?
The surviving Nissan Bluebird is in the pits. Car 56, Orsino at the wheel.
So Stephen Brook, through Forest Elbow, takes the BMW 635, now 4 years of age. Has been racing here for a long time. It was the experimental car that BMW used. And in the pits, the Japanese are changing over. It's Hosseini getting back in the car. Hoshino has had the spell. Hoshino, the younger, taller of the drivers. They say he's a bit of a daredevil. The man behind the wheel now is the hard-headed, experienced driver. He's an engineer. He's the quick one. They're both pretty fast.
All right, we're in John French's car now, keeping in mind that John has taken over from Dick Johnson. John French, Mike Raymond, can you hear us okay?
Yes, Mike, I can hear you.
How's everything looking out there?
Oh, the car's going superbly. There's no problem with anything at the moment.
Would you like to send a cheerio call to all your fans in Queensland?
Yes, I'd love to send a cheerio to all the people at Club 17 at David Harding's place, where they get every race day and have a drink and hope we win.
John French, Evan Green here. I'd like you to recall what happened just a little bit further up the circuit when you were driving an Alfa Romeo many years ago, and you were involved in that crash which eliminated something like a third of the field. It was just beyond Skyline. Tell us what happened when you came over here. What was it, about 15 years ago?
1969, Evan. I went over the top, and there was everybody stopped, and I hit someone, and someone hit me, and I ended up upside down.
You were hit 3 times after you went upside down.
100 times.
And do you know who was the first person to reach you? Do you remember?
Yeah, Dickie Johnson.
And how did Dick get to you?
He was locking it over the fence with his wife Julie and my wife Mari, not Dick's mother, and
he was a spectator.
Yes, and Dick put his head in the window and he said, "Are you all right, mate?" I said, "Yeah, can I get out yet?" He said, "Yeah, righto." So out I got.
And that's the way you met Dick Johnson?
I don't know. We were friends a long time before that.
Oh, it was nice to run into him then.
Yeah.
He's the only fellow who didn't run into you.
Yeah.
What's the car like on the straight, John?
Oh, it weaves around a bit. The rear spoiler on this car isn't as good as last year's car. And you don't have quite as much time to relax. And besides, Dick's done all the hard work. I'm just trying to go as fast as I possibly can, which is not as quite as fast as Dick, but...
You've driven a lot of cars here at Bathurst, John.
Sure have, Evan.
Tell us about some.
Well, I started off here in 57 in the FJ. Graduated to Cooper S's, Alphas, and then Fords.
You're not reading that from a cue card, are you, John?
No, mate. I'm too busy.
Johnny, you've done it. It's Gary Wilkinson. You've done just about everything. I suppose you've also got the Prudential umbrella in the car with you, have you?
No. I'll need it when I get out of this, though.
We'll let you get on with the lap, John, while we take a break to have a bit of a rest, and we'll be back with the action at Mount Panorama in a few moments.
Working the pits in an auto race is a dirty job. Engines, transmissions, rear ends, tools, grime, grit, grease, and heat. It's really a man's world. But behind the pits, it's another story, believe me, with the young ladies from all over the country coming to watch the drivers on the track, from the race queen to the representatives of the commercial companies that are in the race. Believe me, if in the pits is a man's world, behind the pits is a man's world too. Back to the box.
Oh, yeah, we can't get him out of that spot, can we?
And we've been trying to get him all afternoon. We couldn't raise him.
Steve Masterton, car number 2. A man who has only moved into the larger cars this year, was Rookie of the Year 3 years ago. Drove a Capri and then enlisted Colin Bond into the team with him. Drove for a couple of seasons, learnt a lot, became one of the most professional teams in terms of presentation. Have moved into a new XE Falcon. And Steve and Bruce Stewart, a veteran of many Bathurst races, are running a car that gave them some problems in practice, but they've got the car pretty nicely developed now. They're running in 14th place, and they had the idea of bringing out a man who knows what it's all about, the American Carroll Smith, who had in fact masterminded some of the successful assaults by Allan Moffat in his days with Fords. And as Jim Masterton, the father of Steve, was telling me, in a few days they saved themselves 6 months' work. Such was the expertise and the brilliance of
Gee, the red bugs are topsy.
I saw a few on the
The red fireflies. There's Steve Masterton in the Masterton Homes 2WS entry.
And he's passing car 4 now. Is Alan Grice going into the pits?
Yes, it would look that way. Hold that. Check out Alan Grice.
This could be the critical stop then, as Alan Grice actually hands over. We see Masterton go by the pits, and Grice is moving into the pits for what could be the most critical stop of the race.
Alan Brown should take over.
Now, an enormous load on the shoulders of Alan Brown. I think he was getting a bit nervous about it, the man who went racing for fun and suddenly found himself in a winning team. He's helmeted up, ready to go. Alan Grice will give him instructions, tell him what the car's like, what the track is like, try and calm him down, because Alan Grice gets on very well with Alan Brown, and we'll try and relax him. He knows the pressure facing a new driver, particularly when he knows he has to try and get out there and catch, first of all, Larry Perkins, then Peter Brock. And there aren't many men on this track who could even face that challenge with any hope of making up ground on such drivers. Helping him with the seatbelts, adjusting him, talking to him all the time, calming him down. Alan Brown might own the team, might own the car, but he's the junior member of the partnership in terms of driving ability. He knows that. He respects what Alan Grice will tell him. Grice is chatting to him all the time.
Quick pit stop if they could just get Alan Brown buckled up. Here now, the engine is fired. Brown's ready. Grice is relieved. And the Recar Commodore goes back into the race. Car number 4. We'll check out his position on the track for you in a moment or so. 45.98 seconds. A very, very quick pit stop for Alan Grice.
And on top of the track, Steve Masterton, still circulating in the Masterton Homes Falcon XE. Beautifully presented car.
I'll never forget Jim Masterton, who is a delightful gentleman. Felt sorry for the Channel 7 commentators one day at Amaroo Park and thought our conditions were a little primitive. That built us a brand new tower, which all other media outlets have also had access to. A man very, very dedicated to the sport.
That pit stop was so quick, Mark. The Recar Commodore is still in second place on the track now with Alan Brown at the wheel.
A lot of pressure now on Alan Brown to keep the lap times up.
Right. Tyres really must have been going off badly, you know, there, because Grice lost 10 seconds in the last 7 laps on the race leader, the dealer team Commodore, and I guess that Chris Economaki, that's one of the questions you'll be asking Alan Grice, if you can get a word with him about the tyre situation. Here's Chris Economaki.
Any fight with Grice. Okay, right here with Alan Grice. Alan, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear, mate.
Okay, it's been a long stint for you. What kind of shape are you in?
I'm okay.
How about the car?
It's all good, except the brakes are, we're running out of pedal. You've got to pump the pedal up all the time, and it doesn't always pump up. So you're never quite certain when you arrive at a corner whether you've got a full pedal or half a pedal or not much pedal. So it's something that Brownie will have to wrestle with and get used to. It took me a while to get used to it.
What's it doing to your lap time?
Well, the problem is it makes it a little inconsistent, because if you suddenly go for the pedal and you haven't got very much pedal, you haven't got very much brake there, you virtually have to throw that corner away and try and just play it safe, and then get back on the pace. So, you know, it does upset you from time to time. I hope Brownie can cope with it okay.
Alan, what is the level of driving around the course on the part of the rest of the field?
Well, I've found it pretty good, to be quite honest. I don't know about the other blokes, what sort of runs they've had, but except for the odd occasion, I've found my passengers through being pretty good.
What about the racing surface? Dirt, oil, pebbles?
Yeah, it's certainly deteriorated in that respect, but then there's a lot of people using a lot of rubber up and cutting corners a little, I guess.
Yeah, humming the pits.
And, you know, the surface is quite slippery, quite treacherous. Probably why so many cars have stuck it in today.
Did you have any frights, any close calls during your stint?
Yeah, I had one sort of spin at the end of the straight there when I spun out of the lead, and that was the first real problem I had with the brakes. I just suddenly went for the pedal and only had about half a pedal there.
Well, okay, get a good rest and hang in there. Alan Grice doing long duty here in the James Hardy 1000. Back to the box.
And after a short stint, Gary Scott, short but regulation, has brought the second of the Marlborough Holden dealer team Commodores into the pits. And now John Harvey takes over for the final segment in the 82 James Hardy 1000. It's an important stop. Everything looks okay. The mechanics on the far side say we're clear. A man just cleaning the windscreen. The last turn of fuel goes in. What? There it is now. No, don't need it. Okay, he's had a signalling man, the whole car is clear, and John Harvey goes out. Will Fortune ride with him at last, the man who's been one of the unluckiest drivers in the race, out for what should be his last stop. That was a quick one, 40.63 seconds. That was the fastest of the stops by the top drivers.
There's our Prudential Assurance chopper. Over there, we've been joined by Prudential, of course, for this telecast, helping to track the vehicles for us.
That long antenna-like device hanging beneath it is linked with the Dick Johnson John French car, picks up the signal, which allows you to sit in that car, number 17, as it goes around the track. There are the two helicopters bringing you the telecast, Prudential on the right, 7 on the left, tracking cars, carrying cameras to bring you the action here for Mount Panorama.
There's Alan Brown, hands full coming out of the turn, heading down Conrod Straight again.
And Larry Perkins in the dealer team Commodore car 5, which is co-driving with Peter Brock, has just passed the halfway mark in the 1982 James Hardy 1000, and we'll be back after this break for more of the great race.
Going much slower than he should. There's something to cause him to slow down, because he was overtaken at phenomenal speed by other cars. It might be a fuel problem. If that's so, there's a Capri 3-litre going by. Let's look at the gauge. Well, it's a bit hard to pick up where the actual needle itself is, but if the Marlborough Holden dealer team are judging, yes, it was empty, he was showing. If they're judging as finely as that, they really are playing a very precise sort of game.
And a game that can backfire if anything goes astray.
Over the bumps, will he just be able
He's just rolling in there. There's Brock. Perkins getting out. Chris Economaki.
Watching Larry Perkins refitting Mr. Brock to the driver's seat. Remember, these gentlemen are approximately the same size. The belts seem to be going in. Whether they're tight enough or not, I don't know. Now Perkins is talking with Brock, telling him about the condition of the car, the information that Brock needs to know to do a good job. Brock is the absolute picture of confidence and optimism here. The crew is very proficient. The right side is down already. The windshield is being washed. The fuel is all in. This could be one of the quicker pit stops of the day, and I believe it was as it goes off. Larry, what kind of a stint was it?
Beautiful.
You're soaking wet in the back.
Oh, I had a beautiful run. I just coasted to orders, and car's going beautiful. Good as the day we came up here.
Any frights, any close calls?
A couple of them, very minor with slow cars, but absolutely no problem.
Okay, you look happy, and the team member, Larry Perkins, who's just turned over to Pete Brock, seems confident as well. Back to the box.
Thank you very much, Chris. And you were certainly right in saying it was a quick stop. We timed it at 35.2 seconds. So that's the fastest of the top runners. So that's put them in even better shape than they were before. Now Peter Brock is out on the track, seeing how the car feels. If Larry is correct, it feels perfect. So he's in front with a good motor car and the final stint for Peter Brock. A long haul for him, though, but out there, and he'll stay in the car till the end of the race.
Following one of the barbecues galore, Camaros, and Brian Callahan making a run down here on number 47. Callahan is coming back through the field. Steve Masterton now in for the pits. Bruce Stewart about ready to take over. One of the better presented cars here at the James Hardy this year.
Yes, the presentation of the car certainly is a credit to the team. Carol Smith, running the team, has given them a few tips which only come with experience. They're new at the business of running big cars, but they'll become very proficient, I'm sure, and they're up in 14th place, and that's a good result. They may grow higher if the car seems to be as good as it looks. Had some problems in preparation, had a few worries, seemed to have them all sorted out, and today, in fact, was the first time they really seemed to be reasonably content with the way the car was performing. And up on the top of the track, the two Chevrolet Camaros of the Barbecues Galore team are running nose to tail. A nice way to be, just leading each other around. Car 6, Ron Dixon and Bob Stevens, two very experienced drivers of big cars. And the other one, car 12, Jeff Leeds and Peter Fitzgerald. Peter Fitzgerald, of course, who normally runs the Porsche in sports car events in Australia, has moved into running a Mazda RX-7 in series production. He qualifies for the Rookie of the Year, as is Peter Fitzgerald's first time. in the car trailing. Car number 6, though, is the one leading, the one that Ron Dixon and Bob Stevens are sharing.
Pit stop. The pit stop, which saw Peter Brock take over again in 05, has now put 4 other cars back on the front running lap with him. They are Alan Grice, Johnny Harvey, Dick Johnson and Alan Moffat. But the gap between first and second, Brock and Alan Grice, or Alan Brown, who's now in the recar, is 1 minute 18 seconds.
Well, a comfortable edge at this time for the Marlborough Holden dealer team. The professional way they go about motor racing is a credit to them. There's the 2 Camaros heading down Conrod Straight. Actually, Brian Callahan is just ahead of those 2. Now, the 100-mile-an-hour tape, as they call it, duct tape.
We saw the bonnet coming loose on the car that Bob Tullius and John Goss were sharing. Came into the pits to have it taped down. It's flapping just too much, distracting the drivers, and Tullius going out as the 2 Chevy Camaros run past. Well, they're having a run that's had some events, but one of the great incidents in the race involved another Chevy Camaro, car 9. At the end of Mountain Straight.
BMW 41 using a little oil, and the former race winner driven last year by Dick Johnson, whose bonnet, which they've had to tape down with about 1.5 miles of tape.
David Hobbs was passing, but the man who's been leading the race, Peter Brock, with a magnificent stint in the middle of the event by his co-driver, Larry Perkins.
Larry Perkins not only took over the wheel for the stint from Peter Brock, but held the lead that they had at that time, and in fact even extended it over second place getter in the mid stages, and that was Alan Grice. When Perkins took over, he led by 37 seconds, and when he handed back to Brock, the lead was 44 seconds.
Alan Moffat, could this be a winning drive? He's been going so reliably, so quickly. He's now up in 4th place, running very well. Gary Wilmington had problems, the young driver, and another one who had problems, the Sybil's entry from Queensland, ran out of fuel, had to be pushed into the pits very finely indeed.
Meantime, with John French at the wheel of the Palmer Prudential Falcon, we continue to see great pictures like this from the 7 race cam.
That's updating the James Hardy 1000.
Moffat's in the pits. This could be the change over to Katayama, the driver. The word from the pits also is that the front stabilizer bar in Dick Johnson's Falcon with John French in it has broken, so we may have to come into the pits. John French has reported the stabilizer bar has broken. Moffat changing over to the Japanese driver. He built a left-hand drive car to give him better weight distribution around what is predominantly a left-hand circuit. And Katayama, the most experienced Mazda racer in the world, takes over from Alan Moffat, and that's a long haul and a rather stiff and I'm sure tired Alan Moffat pulls out. And Katayama gives it about 1 million revs and goes over the speed bumps on the straight and about to drive his first race here at Mount Panorama. Over the second speed hump.
Nothing to do with Channel 7's telecast, but some well-wisher up on the mountain.
The lid comes off and it's full of cold cans. By the way, while Katayama was pulling out of the pits there in the Stuyvesant Mazda car 43, pulling back in the pits again was the Nissan Bluebird with Hassimi at the wheel, car 56. He'd managed to get himself up into 6th place on the track, 2 laps down on the race leader, but he's going to lose more ground now. Disappointment there.
We lost car 55, the team car to this. George Fury stopped on the top of the mountain with some sort of mechanical problem and is out of the race. But the Japanese pair have been going exceptionally well, not only leading their class, but being up in a position where they could still win the race. There's some unintended work going on. There are people under the car there. Look, you can see that's not just a scheduled stop. There is some problem. Bad news for the Nissan team. The car's gone so well. It's around the back right-hand corner of the car. Maybe a brake problem, something to do with the axle. But they're paying a lot of attention there. Some Japanese, other Australian mechanics in the Nissan team. A man wearing heat-proof gloves because it's very hot back there. The only surviving turbo car in the race. You can see the heat pouring around from the differential area.
I've had my fingers burnt once or twice, but that's ridiculous.
We follow it as the pit crews try and effect repairs there. and you can see how hot it is. Asbestos gloves.
Well, this is losing time to a team that has been running so well.
That's a major setback for the Nissan Turbo.
The poor fellow with the gloves are one thing, but his eyes are being absolutely blinded by smoke. It's pouring out through the exposed wheel arch, the direction of wind is blowing it right out over his face, as you can see. It's like standing near a fireplace. Now, the smoke always comes towards you when you're trying to cook a barbecue. Same thing.
Behind the wheel, Masahiro Hasimi, who's already had a break earlier in the race, is back in the car now, but frustration because he was doing so well. The car really has been flying and promised to be right in the thick of things towards the end of the race when this befell them, and they can't even get to it to repair it. Meantime, Chris Economaki has another interview for us down in the pit area.
Yeah, I'm with Gary Cook. Gary, were you really running faster laps than Alan Grace when trouble hit?
Yes, just before the changeover, Warren pulled in. He was running high 21s, low 22s. We're actually pulling Alan's car in our times.
Yeah. Engine trouble is what put your car out, right?
Yes, we blew a head gasket, yes.
Why is there so much engine trouble today, particularly among the Commodores?
Well, we just can't work it out. We've got the best of everything in the motor, and the gasket just went, no reason at all. The car was running very cool, the oil pressure and everything was very good.
I'm interested in the feelings of the man. Here's the biggest race of the year, the biggest race in the country, and you're out early. What went through your mind when you saw those needles start going back to zero?
You know, just disappointment. The whole thing, we thought we had a very good chance of winning this.
Race drivers are eternal optimists. You're looking forward to the next race, I imagine.
Oh, we are, yes, very much so.
Okay, Gary Cook, another one of the men, a victim of the James Hardy 1000. Back to the box.
Thank you, Chris. In the meantime, we have the pit stop for the second of the Recar Commodores, the Ron Wanless, Gary Rogers entry.
He's been in the pits about 7 times.
We've heard reports that the Dick Johnson, John French-driven Ford Falcon, the Prudential car, has had a sway bar problem. John French, can you read us?
Yes, I can hear.
John, we had a report that you got a sway bar problem. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, they told me from the pits I got a sway bar broken. It was getting a bit oversteering. I thought it was just because I was getting the light fuel load, but obviously the front bar's broken. Slowed me up about a second a lap.
Can you keep on going with that problem, John?
Oh, yes, that'll be no bother.
What do you have to do to compensate for that?
Go a bit slower. Through the corners.
What, the tail wants to come out, does it?
Yep.
How will it affect you, John, on some of the rougher parts of the track? Because there are some rather nasty bits. Say where you're approaching now, where you dip down towards McPhillamy Park.
It's not too bad through the fast corners. It's only when you're flicking backwards and forwards. Through the S's and that.
It goes to show, John, that there's no substitute for experience, eh?
I hope you're right.
Well, I can think of a few drivers who, if they had a broken sway bar, would come into the pits and maybe lose about 4 or 5 minutes.
They could kill me. I suppose that's why he picks an old fella.
How do you get on with Dick?
Oh, good. He knows I'm better than him, and we don't argue about it.
We're watching Dick in the pits, and he's watching you on the screen, I'm sure. But the words you can offer to Dick, though, are that the car is okay. You're just losing, what, only a second a lap, which really maybe isn't too important. Correct?
Well, Dick's going to have to make it up.
I'll tell him that.
John, when do you propose coming in to change over?
I've been asking to come in for half an hour, but they won't let me.
Okay, John, we'll let you take a rest. Thanks again for the update about the car, and good luck for the continuation of the race.
Thank you.
Well, that says it all.
Yes. Yeah, the car's still running well. He knows he still has a chance of winning, but he builds the car, prepares the car, lives with the car. And the fans up there who don't know the message still reckon he eats whatever it is for breakfast. But
Obviously, they're not the paid-up members of the Nissan or the Katayama fan club up on the top of the mountain. But Dick Johnson, with a giggle, still a smile to crack. The car's out there, it's still running, it's competitive, and we've still got a long way to go in the 1982 James Hardy 1000.
Dick Johnson has worked so hard to get this car ready. It's an XE Falcon with a new coil spring rear suspension. He reckoned he was working for a couple of months on the basis of 7 days a week, 18 hours a day to build the car. And when I saw him at Sandown, he was a very tired man. Looks a bit fresher now, remarkably relaxed. I suppose he reckons that he can't do any more. He works hard, he loves the car, he puts all of himself into it. And he's still in there with a winning chance. He's got something wrong with the front, but as you heard John French tell you, they can handle that. But they are now going to call John French into the pits. That's the message we get from the pit row, that this car with John French driving will be brought into the pits. And John French, who told you he wanted to come in for the last half an hour, is about to have his wish granted. Gee, he's turned in a good spell of driving.
Always does.
You know, he started in the very first Armstrong 500 in 1960, and he won last year in 1981. 21 years apart. Took a long time to win, but a measure of the man, the great Queensland driver, John French. He's got plenty of supporters there too.
They'd give their shirt for John.
Go for it, true blue. And that's exactly what Frenchie's doing down the straight. And if information is correct, it'll be the last time that he'll barrel down there this afternoon, because he's about to, on this or the next lap or so, hand the car back to Dick Johnson. And it'll be Johnson that will have to wrestle with that sway bar problem. He's going for one more lap.
Well, he hasn't got the message yet probably. He'll get the signal there. Although, of course, they can speak on the radio, although he was talking at the time to us, so they probably couldn't communicate with him. Yes, is that Finnegan behind? Yes. A brave effort by them, and the Commodore that was one of the three cars badly damaged on the second lap of the race. But the reason I think that we've had trouble with so many of the cars is not engine problems, but the fact they've been hitting each other or hitting things.
I've been watching the Seiko 7 Mazda, and I noticed last time round Barry Jones was going very slowly along pit straight. Seems to be having some gear selection trouble.
They did have gearbox problems in practice.
And at Sandown.
Yes, that's right, where Allan Jones, in fact, couldn't get gears. Maybe it's recurring. I was talking to Bert Jones, Barry's father, who helped prepare the car, and saying the box is a bit suspect. They have to be very careful with the start of the race so they don't break up first gear. But it could be that Allan Jones, or Barry Jones rather, driving at the moment, is having gearbox problems, so we may see them in the pits. That's car 27, the Mazda RX-7 of the Jones boys.
Meanwhile, we follow John French on what should be his last spell at the wheel. So he'll be coming in, we believe, the next time past the pits to hand over to Dick Johnson.
And is that Garth Wigston showing what might have been? Just passing him, one of the cars that was damaged, the Tasmanian driver.
Texas Instruments tell us the top 10 overall. There it is on your screen. 05 Commodore, Brock and Perkins, followed by the Recar Commodore of Grice and Brown. The second dealer team car, Scott and Harvey. Then John French and Dick Johnson in the Palmer Prudential Falcon. Katayama at the wheel of the Stuyvesant Mazda, car 43 at the moment, holding down 5th spot. Then car 27, Jones and Jones. That remains to be seen whether they stay there or not much longer. Car 31, the BMW, Richards and Hobbs. The Commodore car 3 of Jansen and Parsons. Then another Commodore with Benson, Brown and O'Brien, car 11 in 9th spot. And car 40, the Strongbow Mazda of Dane and McLeod in 10th spot.
So for the first time we have 3 Mazdas in the top 10.
And for the first time I think we don't have a Bluebird in the top 10. Car 56, that long pit stop has put them out of the running.
Our special thanks go to Texas Instruments Australia Limited for their participation in the 1982 James Hardy 1000. We should pick up the pit stop this time around for John French. Yes, he heads down the pit lane. Going in, there has been a suggestion that they may try to replace the sway bar, and just ahead of him is Barry Jones limping in with the number 27 Mazda, holding up John French for a moment or two.
So 2 of the most important runners of the event into the pits at the same time. Jones, who was running in 6th, and John French running in 4th place in the Falcon. The Palmer Prudential Falcon. Dick Johnson will take over. Tyre change, fuel going in, that's just a matter of course. Someone will probably look at the sway bar, but I don't think they're too concerned about that. John French just telling him about the car. Having a chat, getting his belt lined up, telling him anything about the car or the track that he would need to know. So Dick Johnson back for the final stint in car 17.
Well, there's one with this problem. We'll wait for it to come through. There we go. Let's see who we've got here. One of the Recar team cars.
16.
Going quickly.
It was going quick, but blowing a puff of smoke. I don't know if it's on the wheel or whether it was coming out. Yes, he's rubbing a fender. He's had a bump by the look of it, cut something, and the fender has moved in, or the guard anyway.
It may be where the car was damaged when Ron Wanless had that bump much earlier in the race. There may be something that's just touching. Certainly there is blue smoke coming from the front of the car. Let's see under movement. It seems to be right, bends to the left. What's it like to the right? Yeah, not so good that way. Yes, he's trying hard. Dick Johnson, in the meantime, has gone out a very quick stop. So Johnson is looking good and out on the track. Lost very little time there.
Back on the track again.
Gary Rogers going quickly but puffing smoke when he turns the wheels in certain directions. It may just be rubbing slightly, in which case you won't be too concerned. Down to the pit row where John French is lined up with Chris Economaki.
I'm here with John French. John, I must say that you look as though your stint has been easier on you than it's been on a lot of the younger guys. How was it out there?
Oh, it wasn't too bad, actually, Chris. Until this front bar broke, it was pretty good, but then with the light fuel load and the hot rear tyres, it got a bit oversteery.
Got some parts here. Let's have a look here. And what have we here?
Well, it's a good titanium bar, and looks like she's not quite enough strength in it for the loads of the Falcon.
Ha! Well, so the race is beginning to take its toll. How's the car handling?
Oh, well, except for the oversteer, it's pretty good. Now Dick's got new rear tyres and a full load of fuel. He should come back to reasonable sort of times. Obviously, we're not going to catch these special Commodores, but we'll be out there giving everyone else a bad time.
Well, that's good. Okay, John, thank you very much, and back to the box.
Thank you very much. And Alan Jones and Barry Jones's Mazda has been taken to the back of the pits for attention to the gearbox. We'll be returning with the action in a few moments' time.
Prudential Falcon. True Blue Queenslander Dick Johnson, car 17, and he's in 5th position on the racetrack at the moment, a lap down on race leader 05 Peter Brock in the Marlborough Holden dealer team Commodore. Dick Johnson. Are you there, Dick?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, it's Wilco, mate. How's it going?
Oh, not too bad for an old bloke, mate. How's yourself?
I'm pretty good, Dick. It's a little less hectic up here than it is where you are. What about this sway bar problem?
Oh, well, we just have to live with it, eh?
Yeah, OK. Got a couple of blokes in front you've got to pass yet, so don't give up the ship.
Oh, no, don't worry, mate. We won't give up. Never say die till the end.
What about track conditions, Dick, at the moment? Must be a lot of rubber down out there. Dirt, oil.
Yeah, there's a bit of everything. And especially up through XL, there's a lot of dirt on the side of the road. But other than that, it's not that bad. Because our tyres are pretty new at the moment. We'll just have to wait and see how they end up. But she's pretty taily because there's no front bar on. And other than that, we'll just keep trucking on till the end, I suppose.
Dick, the traffic has thinned out. There don't seem to be too many obstructions in that regard.
No, they've had a few fatalities, unfortunately.
Mechanically, apart from the sway bar problem, the car's running great by the sound of it.
Yeah, it's not bad for something. I think we've used more oil than we have petrol, but these old engines, they just keep running forever and a day. I think the most I've seen on the tacho so far is about 9.8. So we'll just have to keep it into it, because I believe that in the next 12 months or so, we're going to have to rev the pick handles out of these old mothers to stay with those pretty quick old Commodores.
Oh, you never know. Ford might even develop a new police car.
Oh, I don't know about that, but we might do one ourselves, I think.
Everything looking pretty good then, Dick.
Yeah, we're not going too bad. Thanks, Gary.
Righto, Dick Johnson, we'll leave you in peace for a little while and get on with some serious driving, and we'll talk to you again later.
Thank you.
Dick Johnson, I'll tell you what, for a man that's involved in a real fight out there to catch the top 4 cars in front of him, he's a man that's really relaxed and knows exactly what he's about. He's got a fight on his hands with that car too, as blasé as he may try to sound. It is a bit of a handful for him.
He's got a fight on his hands. If you look who's looming up behind him.
Yeah.
Coming down Conrod straight away.
Trying to put another lap on him.
Well, watch this as we come down. Never ceases to amaze me when you get sportsmen. Oh, they're trying this 3 wide. This is at the very precarious part of the fastest part of the track. And tailgating, the Marlborough Holden dealer team Commodore right behind Dick Johnson.
Both our camera cars on the track, nose to tail. The view out the rear window of the Palmer Prudential Falcon. There's Brock in 0.5, left-hander at Murray's corner. Brock already has a lap on Johnson, remember. This had put him 2 laps up. He pulls out, moves alongside, down to the end of pit straight, the left-hander into Hell's corner, and Brock is now 2 laps up on Dick Johnson.
I don't think Dick needed that.
Now that's just going to make the job even harder for Dick Johnson from here out. So as Brock and Johnson make their way back up Mountain Straight again, let's take you over to pit lane and Chris Economaki.
Okay, we're down here in the pits with an obviously disappointed Alan Jones. You've had a tough Bathurst, the Falcon out, and now I gather the Mazda's spinning.
Well, I can't even say I've had better either. No, I am disappointed because obviously I think our Falcon would have been going very well. And we were just getting up into 4th place or 5th place in the Mazda. And we stripped 2nd gear coming out of this left-hander into the pit straight here. Just blew it completely.
I understand that the transmission is really the Achilles heel of the Mazda today.
Yeah, well, I think it's, they're getting more and more horsepower out of the car, and we have a gearbox which certain other person, I believe, has got, and so ours is a little bit more vulnerable.
Alan, you're playing a new role here. You're a team owner and a manager. What's it like compared to being a driver?
Terrible. I'm going to give it a miss, I think.
Okay, thanks very much, and better luck next time, Alan.
Thanks, Chris.
Back to the bar.
Thank you very much. Not only terrible, it's more expensive too. That is bad luck. I know Bert Jones was saying that they had a problem with the gearbox, and they were very concerned about how much power they could feed through at the start. So, the hopes of the race being won by other than a V8 rest fairly and squarely on the shoulders of Alan Moffat.
We also have the situation where John Harvey is catching Alan Brown rather dramatically. The gap has been coming down lap after lap. So maybe Harvey's going to make a big, bold, late charge here for 2nd place. There's the race leader, though. They've been picking up all the lap money from Wins Friction Proofing. $500 for the outright leader at 1 o'clock. They picked up the Motorola Communications Australasia Award for $500 as the overall outright leader of the 81st lap. And looking good for the 2nd of the Wins Friction Proofing Awards at 2 o'clock. So Alan Grice might have won all the early money, but the Marlborough Holden dealer team is now starting to pick up at least $500 at a time.
There's the Phillips scoreboard, and that shows that Brock in the lead by 2 minutes and 14 seconds ahead of Alan Grice at the moment, and they're the only 2 on the front running lap. A lap down, John Harvey in the 2nd dealer team Commodore, followed by Alan Moffat, the Stuyvesant Mazda RX-7 car 43, and then 2 laps down on the race leader Brock. We've got Dick Johnson in the Palmer Prudential Falcon car 17.
Oh, this is heady stuff.
Boy, look at this.
3 abreast. He pulled out to pass Alan Brown, then has taken another lap on the car coming 2nd, so he's got by Alan Brown in car 4, and he had a big Chevy Camaro on the outside as well. That is pretty desperate stuff, but Peter Brock still going as hard as he can. He's driving his own pace. There's no finer judge of the way to take a car to victory than Peter Brock. But you have to take a deep breath and just hope that he's doing the right thing when you see him going 3 at best, up through the cutting at Mount Panorama. Still, he got away with it.
Peter Brock is now the front running car in this race on the lead lap, all on his own. And those 4 bottles of oil are sitting there waiting for Dick Johnson's Palmer Prudential Falcon.
He must have done the rings completely then if he's using that much oil, which suggests he's making one more stop, so not good news from Dick Johnson's point of view.
If they load that with any more oil, they could pour it directly to the sump.
Well, Peter Brock has won this race already 5 times, which puts him 1 more than Allan Moffat with 4 victories. Harry Firth and Bob Jane, each of whom had 4 victories in the Armstrong 500 and the Gallagher 500 and the Hardy Ferodo, the races that preceded this. Entitled, the same race, of course, since its early origins way back in 1960 at Phillip Island in Victoria. Ford have won overall 10 times. Holden 8, it might be 9 after today. V8s have won 14 times, the last 10 in a row. And the only way they're going to lose today, I suspect, is if Allan Moffat can get his rotary Mazda up there into the winner's circle. He's still well placed. Something has to go wrong with 05 and 4 and 25. So he's got 3 really good V8s still in front of him.
Yes, the only other smaller capacity car in contention would be the BMW. The Mazda, McLeod Mazda, car 40.
Brock trying to, I think, open the gap a little bit, give himself more of a buffer. Certainly been doing a great job since he took over from Larry Perkins. Hasn't spared the rod, so to speak, with the car. And John Harvey also doing a great stint. Now he's back at the wheel of the second dealer team Commodore, number 25.
Peter Brock, the man who was involved in all the contentious issue during the running of the Australian Touring Car Championship this year. Legal challenges and court actions over an alleged illegal inlet manifold. The case, of course, resolved out of court, and Brock, by not going on with the case, foregoing any chance of the touring car title, which went to Queenslander Dick Johnson, winner of this race last year when it was foreshortened by 40 laps by that incredible pile-up on top of the mountain.
It's been 2 years since Brock has been the national touring car champion, but he's won this race 5 times. First of all in 1972, as we see the Texas Instrument printout of the leading 10. Another Mazda has crept on the leading board, the one of Ron Gillard and Phil Alexander.
So there are 3 of them in the top 10.
Yes, they're 6 laps behind, but still they're starting to fill up the lead. Peter Brock won the race in a 6-cylinder Tirana in 1972, the last time that anything but a V8 has won the race. And then he won in a SLR Tirana in 75, and again in 78, 79, and then 80 when he switched to a Commodore. So this may be the year in which he scores his 6th victory and the 2nd in the Commodore. He now has a big margin over the opposition, Allan Brown, who's passed him. So we put another lap on him in 2nd place. John Harvey, in fact, will be probably challenging for Allan Brown to try and take 2nd spot away from him.
They're down to about 6 seconds, the gap there.
Well, it puts a tremendous load on the shoulders of Allan Brown with someone like John Harvey after him.
3-litre class, by the way, is now being led, believe it or not, by Barry Seaton, former race winner and one of the real veterans of touring car racing, certainly around here at Mount Panorama. Barry Seaton and Don Smith in car 50, the Capri leading the 3-litre class, ahead of 56, the Nissan Bluebird with Hassimi at the wheel. Car 50, by the way, that we were just talking about, the 3-litre leader with Barry Seaton, didn't arrive here until 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon and went out for only the 1 qualifying session on Friday afternoon. So that's the situation. Peter Brock, the race leader, Barry Seaton, the leader in the 3-litre class. We'll be back with more action from Mount Panorama after this break. Car 21, Stephen Harrington, who was involved in a 3-car pile-up at the top of the mountain on the 3rd lap of the race, and those very temporary repairs that were effected to the front of the vehicle to get it back out on the track and racing. They're still circulating, but boy, they're having all sorts of problems, and they've been in the pits a number of times. And talking about being in the pits, Chris Economaki is there.
I'm sitting here with John Shepard, a recognized excellent car builder and a student of the sport. John, the stresses and strains of the race are beginning to show. Here's Dick Johnson out there with a broken sway bar. Alan Jones Mazda is in with a broken transmission. Where are the stresses the strongest on the racetrack here?
I guess suspension-wise, Chris, they get a lot of trouble going down through the S's and all that sort of thing, and I would imagine that's where Dick's sway bar would have got into trouble, you know, where they drop down and one wheel comes off the ground. It puts an enormous load when the car comes back onto that. Transmission-wise, I don't think there's any disasters except the bumps in the road. You hear the cars buzzing as they're going and the wheels spinning over the bumps, so that's not good for them, obviously.
You can see on our picture in many of the corners where they pick up the inside wheels. The entire weight of the car is on the right-hand wheel.
Yeah.
That must be a tremendous loading on the metal there.
That's right, yeah. And that's the sort of thing, as we say, it's when the car lurches back down on it, it gets the full weight of the car on one wheel, and that's very, very hard on the suspension and all the components.
Do you have drivers here who are able to baby a car in a sense here, and others who are tough on it?
Yes, the man that's in the lead at the moment will carry that car around by the bootstraps if necessary. He nurses a car and is very, very kind to it, and you'd find when he's finished the race that car will be like brand new. And that's one of the reasons, obviously, why he's out where he is at the moment.
Obviously, these cars are essentially the same as the cars of last year. Some of the Commodores are just a tad lighter, have a bit more horsepower, but the speeds are dramatically higher. What has been the reason for the sharp escalation in speed?
To be honest with you, Chris, I don't know. It's one of those intriguing things. Things just seem to evolve as time goes by. As you say, all of a sudden, magically, the cars are doing a lot more miles an hour down the straight, which is amazing, actually. Obviously, the lack of weight and the fact that they've been allowed to use the big valve heads has helped them no end as far as the Commodores are concerned.
In building a car for the James Hardy 1000, what is the key thing you strive for?
It's a testing all year long, and it's really reliability with speed. Now, that's a silly thing to say, I guess, because that's everyone's dream, but to make a car run just below the speed where something will break, that's a very, very difficult thing to achieve.
In my country, at Daytona and Indianapolis, the teams go there and they test and test and test at the same track on which they're going to have the race. Here, you cannot come to Bathurst and test. Is this a handicap for the car builders? Of course, it's the same for everybody.
It's a handicap in the sense that you can't test what actually will go wrong at Bathurst. But we, as I said to you, when I was with the dealer team, we would test all year long, and every component, we would try to run it for 1,000 k's so we knew whether it was going to last that amount of time. We would put it back in an engine to see whether it would last. So we test a lot of reliability factors over the period of the year, so it's not quite as bad as it sounds.
Okay, thank you very much, John Shepherd, for your insight and back to the box.
Thanks very much, Chris Economaki. As the viewers could see during that discussion then, Peter Brock, who was driving like a whirlwind out there, has just put one lap more on Allan Moffat.
That would give him some satisfaction too, I think, and now it puts him 2 laps in the lead over the Mazda. Allan Moffat still maintaining his position, but he has 2 laps to make up, and he knows really that if he's going to beat Peter Brock, something has to go wrong with Peter Brock. And you people at home, I wonder what you think as you watch Peter Brock going so quickly. If you've put your entry into the Clock Brock competition with a prize, an SS Commodore, do you think you've got the right speed? We'll be clocking Peter Brock to see what sort of lap times he's circulating in now. He's certainly going very rapidly.
Strongbow Mazda car 40, Peter McLeod, which was up among the top 10, has pulled into the pits. Quick stop, fuel, and out again. Back on the track.
This could well be the year of the Marlborough Holden dealer team, for apart from Peter Brock, who manages to stretch his lead every lap, John Harvey has been making dramatic ground on Alan Brown. The gap initially was 25.91 seconds, and it is now down to only 6 seconds and still dropping. So I think we might see a challenge for second place very, very shortly, with John Harvey taking second place away from the Ricar Commodore team.
The big team's doing well. One of the smaller teams not doing so well in the pits at the moment, Scotty Taylor from Wodonga, has his Commodore in the pits. Peter Brock, though, going great guns, and down the bottom of the track, just crossing the start-finish line now, in fact. We have the battle between car 4 and 25. Alan Brown still leading John Harvey, but the margin certainly is closing.
3.4 seconds at the moment. That's going to become real dice in the next lap or so, because Harvey's got the long legs out. Alan Brown fighting to hold him off until they come back for another driver change to hand over to Alan Grice again, but it's going to be a little way off yet. What's going to happen in this dice between Alan Brown and John Harvey, we'll be back to find out at Mount Panorama after this break.
Welcome back to the James Hardy 1000. As we went to that break, we had John Harvey closing dramatically on Alan Brown and the Recar Commodore, and he has just passed Brown and the Recar machine. There's John Harvey, number 25, the Marlborough Holden dealer team, looking strong. 1 and 2.
Alan Brown now back in third place. The car that led the race of the early stages. There's a car stranded out here, obviously. There's a rescue truck going to pick someone up from up the top of the circuit. But Alan Brown now back in third position. Alan Grice, who drove the first 2 stints, has gone too far to get back in the car, although they might be doing some hasty calculations to see just how much time Alan Grice is allowed to drive. The regulations do insist that a driver is only allowed to go for a maximum amount of time, and I suspect that Alan Grice went very close to that in those first 2 long stints, and that Alan Brown will probably have to stick with it for the rest of the run.
Having their own problems early in the race, but managing to at least stay together in showboat formation. Alan Moffat then stepping to RX7, number 43, still running in the top.
So well, up in the top 5. And
New Zealand, and at the last minute entry was Bob Tooley, the United States. Leah, why don't we have more overseas participation in the James Hardy 1000?
The circuit is that difficult that overseas competitors never do very well. It takes a long time to adjust and a lot of experience required to master the circuit itself. So the only ones who are fortunate enough to compete here are the ones who are invited.
Spinning.
Your car was the one that won here last year, but it's out of the race. What took you out?
It was running well, and we were doing the times that we had established at the start of the race, and all of a sudden there's a tremendous vibration coming down the straight, and it turned out to be a broken crankshaft in the engine.
What went through your mind the minute you knew the car was done?
No, sorry, I never caught that.
I say, what went through your mind the moment you knew the car was finished?
As the disappointment for the team, Alf Grant, who never got a drive, and they put a lot of work into the...
Back to the bike.
Well, a sad end to the car, the Falcon that won the race last year, broke its crankshaft, and Leo Lennon from New Zealand, a top driver there, has won the Benson and Hedges race, which is the equivalent of the James Hardy 1000 several times. Also a top-ranking rally driver, very, very fast and versatile driver. A contemporary of Jim Richards, who came from the same school, learned both rallying and racing, moved across here, and now, of course, lives in Melbourne.
Oh,
just watching the BMW. Look, is that Jim Richards? Yes. The BMW, but maybe 41. And there's a fire underneath. There is fire there. You can see it there. He was squeezed out to give room for car. No,
41.
It's Denny Helm or Stephen Brook. One of the. I think by the slimmer figure, it's probably Stephen Brook. I think. Yes, it is Stephen Brook. The BMW into the wall. Car number 41. The flame has stopped. It did appear to be on fire. Stephen having a good look at it. He was making way for some slower cars and got squeezed out. Now, whether he was touched and put out there, I don't know. He's lifted the bonnet to stop the fire. He was unconscious of the fire danger. Lifted the bonnet. The marshal air is covering it in foam. But Stephen Brook, in a whole host of cars, moved on the outside.
Here it is again.
You can see there, something happened just before that put him so wide. Whether he had a touch.
I think he may have hit the marbles very wide because there was a passing manoeuvre going on with a couple of cars. He was caught wide, and the car appeared just to steer straight off into the wall as though he'd lost control of it.
Well, you can see the outside of the track. It's covered in debris from the slicks. Little marbles of rubber which are almost impossible to drive. And we'll look at it again. One of the Marlborough Holden dealer team cars was there, and when Stephen Brook went out to give room for him, he got into the loose, and we'll follow from this side. He's out wide. There's the Nissan Bluebird coming through. He's giving room to them. I think he's paid the penalty of being courteous. He's gone wide there, and the car has hit that wall with a crunch. Wasn't going terribly fast because he was allowing himself to be overtaken. There was just a lick of flame you can see beneath the car, and Brook had the presence of mind to jump out, open the bonnet, and give access so that a fire marshal could squirt some extinguisher straight on. But that's a sad end to the BMW that has been campaigning in Australian races for the last 4 seasons.
Well, Chris Economaki, maybe he's joined Denny Hulme because he just said that hopefully he'd be around when the checkered flag dropped, and no sooner had the words out of his mouth than Stephen Brook, co-driver of Denny's, has ended up in the wall.
Well, the other BMW is still running and up in the top 10, car number 31. But no doubt that 41 is well and truly out of the race.
7th place, in fact, car 31 at the moment. Jim Richards and David Hobbs, the leading BMW entry. Race leader, 107 laps down. And this is the view you're seeing from inside. 05, the Marlborough dealer team Commodore, Peter Brock at the wheel.
Vision is getting worse as the sun lowers. Plenty of insects on the mountain. There won't be too many left by tonight, though, the way the windscreens are cleaning them up. But it's a difficult view for Peter Brock as he comes up the mountain, goes past Stephen Brooks' abandoned BMW. Not so bad through the windscreen when you're not facing the sun, but it gets very hard when you get those rays of light striking the windscreen. Hasami, the Japanese driver, out there again after the long delay. In the meantime, our most distinguished guest is waiting in the pits with Chris Economaki.
Well, I'm here with Bill France, Jr., the president of the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, on his first visit to Australia and his first look at an Australian touring car race. Bill, you've seen 4 hours and 15 minutes of the James Hardy 1000. What are your impressions of Australian touring car racing?
Chris, it's a great event, and quite frankly, and of the great endurance races around the world, I like the race here at Bathurst far better than I do the 24 Hours Le Mans, and I think it's more exciting. It's just a better atmosphere.
What do you think of the quality of the competition, Billy?
Well, the quality is good, and I think it's what really has proven the fact that of all the foreign drivers that have come over and raced, both types from Formula One racing, the American Championship car racing, and sports car racing, they always seem to get their doors blown off here by the people from Australia. So I think that speaks for the competition.
You're considered an astute observer of the motorsporting scene, Bill. In your visit here to Australia, have you seen anything that you're going to take back to the United States with you and try to implement at Daytona, Talladega, and Darlington, perhaps?
Well, I think it would be great if we could get the city people and the elected officials, you might say, and all the various local cities where the events are held to be as friendly and as much on the ball as the citizens of Bathurst have. And the mayor, the city council, right on down, and the attitude of the people here is number one.
Billy, what about a driver from this type of racing coming to Daytona? Do you think he would have difficulty in adapting?
No, I don't think so, Chris. The big problem, as you know, would be to get the individual in a first-rate automobile. And I don't care how good you are or how long you've been driving or what your experience is. If you don't have good equipment on you, you're going to run accordingly. And
Chris,
that's the problem.
Well, Bill, thanks very much for coming by.
Chris,
and I hope you enjoy the balance of the race. Back to the box.
Chris, before Bill goes, it's Mike Raymond, Bill, if I could talk to you for a moment. Bill, I was interested to get your reactions to our race cam system inside the cars with the drivers talking. You've probably heard some of the commentary. This has, of course, never been tried successfully in the States, the commentary side of it.
Mike, I really haven't had a chance to listen to the fellows talk, but the race cams, you know, they speak for themselves, and it's a tremendous event. The race cams have done more than anything else, any single technical achievement in making the Daytona 500 the broadcast that it is. And I think that's a tribute to the technical expertise that exists here in Australia.
Thank you, Bill. And of course, need I say, the race cam system was pioneered by ATN Channel 7 in Sydney. The James Hardy 1000 continues. We'll keep you up to date when we return in a few moments. The James Hardy 1000 at Bathurst as we await what appears to be another pit stop for the Marlborough Holden dealer team. Seemed to be all standing out there ready for a pit stop a moment ago. Larry Perkins just surveying the scene. Our information was that one of the cars was coming in. This hasn't happened as yet.
Car 5 in the lead, of course, is Peter Brock. Charlie O'Brien is about to come in the Soundwaves Commodore. Car 11, he's about to get in that. That's they're in 8th position outright on the track at the present time, which is not bad for a car that was damaged during practice during the week with Clive Benson-Brown when he went off at the bottom of Conrod Straight. There's car 56, the Nissan Bluebird Turbo, driven by Masahiro Hashimi, and they're leader of the 3-litre class at the present time. Pretty good performance because they've had a couple of troubles and they've spent some time in the pits. Back up leading their class, but not really in contention for the outright situation, barring something dramatic in the closing stages of this race. Of course, their teammates George Fury, Fred Gibson in car 55, the twin of this car, out of the race and have been since early on, around the 40-lap mark where they went off at the top of the circuit.
Well, there's Big Charlie O'Brien.
Clive Benson-Brown stepping out.
It's easy to tell Clive. You can see with all the curly hair when he went off the track the other day at 150 miles an hour backwards. Stood up as though he'd been plugged into a 240 socket. But Clive, of course, was one of the drivers, unfortunately, taken out of the race in the prang at the top of the mountain last year. And they've managed to put that car back together again, which has been a feat and a half. Number 16 coming back
from Bathurst. Been for a run down the escape road.
Keeping in mind the car was in only a few laps ago. Gary Rogers with that tyre problem when he popped the outside rear tyre. He's coming back off the access road now, back along Pitt Straight. There is a runoff area at the end of Conrod Straight. We've had a couple of cars go off in the practice leading up to yesterday's top 10 qualifying. There are the speed humps that you can see. Charlie O'Brien taking with some caution, then signalled to go out onto the track. That's where the pit lane joins the track on the run-up Mountain Straight.
This is the state of the nation. It's Peter Brock in 05, more than a lap clear, as we see car 54 return to the track. Les Gross, Allan, Camp, Capri. 05, Peter Brock, dealer team Commodore, more than a lap clear of his teammate Johnny Harvey in the second Marlborough car. Harvey's got 22.6 seconds on Allan Brown in the Re-Car Commodore. They're the top 3 cars in the race at the present time, and then it's 2 laps in arrears to the 4th place getter, Alan Moffat, in the Stuyvesant Mazda car 43, closely pursued by Dick Johnson, the Palmer Prudential Falcon car 17. 3 laps down then to car 3, and that's Peter Jansen in the Cadbury-Schweppes Commodore, and 4 laps or more from then on to car 31, the BMW, Jim Richards and David Hobbs, car 40, the McLeod Mazda, car 11, the Soundwaves Commodore, Charlie O'Brien, you just saw him take the car out, and then car 2, the Masterton Holmes car with Steve Masterton at the wheel. It checks out the top 10 placings at the present time in the James Hardy 1000 for 1982. Information coming to us off the Phillips scoreboard, and you can see the top 6 placings on the board there.
The order is Brock, John Harvey, a 1-2 for the Marlborough Holden dealer team. The Re-Car Commodore of Alan Grice, Alan Moffat in the Peter Stuyvesant Mazda, and the Queenslanders, Dick Johnson and John French. And Peter Jansen, of course, in the Cadbury-Schweppes car in 6th place. That's the top 6 on the Phillips scoreboard. Our thanks, of course, again today go to Texas Instruments, who joined us for the first time for the James Hardy 1000. Their very professional contribution to the race has been more than noticed.
It's amazing, Mike, isn't it, for a man that does so little racing through the year, how Peter Jansen is always hanging in there towards the end of the James Hardy 1000.
Incredible performance from Jansen. It doesn't race all that often in Australia now. Limits his touring car appearances to really just the enduro races, and can always manage to sneak in there with a 2nd or a 3rd place.
Former Bathurst winner on screen at the moment in Barry Seaton in the Capri, car 50, and he's 2nd in the 3-litre class at the present time behind the Nissan Bluebird driven by Masahiro Hashimi.
That's the old Liverpool combination of Barry Seaton and Don Smith, the Alpha Couriers car. Still has a very strong following in the local area. Does Barry Seaton, been a strong campaigner for motorsport and the touring cars for a number of years. Mr. Reliable. Good to see him back at Bathurst, and good to see him doing so well indeed.
Grice is in the pits, or Alan Brown, I should say, in the Re-Car Commodore.
Coming in now, and Grice is going to take over.
Grice getting back in for his final stint from here to the end of the race, and boy, that's still a long way away. 52 laps to go in this race. Alan Brown steps out, weak at the knees, because he's had a real fight out there. Alan Grice in the car, fuel in the car. Fresh rubber on the road, working frantically. And Pat camera crew getting in there to get the pictures.
You can't take the wheels inside the car with you.
Gricey getting strapped in. Assistance from the pit crew. Hook up the 2-way. The arm is in the air. Clear. Go.
Okay, Alan Grice now rejoins the James Hardy 1000. We'll take a break, come back and talk with Alan Brown.
in the pits, Alan Brown. He's in third place. Can he regain second or even win the race from here?
You know, I don't even know where we are. Where are we now? Third. Well, he's pretty quick. I don't know how far behind he is. I didn't help things, but that's as fast as I could go without hanging on an arm cave somewhere and then saying, well, I shouldn't have done that.
It was an enormous burden on you to go out there.
Well, yeah, I guess so, but we done it for fun. You know, if I wanted to get another driver in, I guess I could have quite easily done that all today, as a matter of fact.
Well, you came into racing late. You did it because you enjoy it,
yeah,
and
right.
you suddenly find yourself up with the Tigers.
Well, that's right, yeah. This could be the last time I drive, and I just wanted to get in that car and have maybe that last one. And the work's been so good to us, I just wanted to be part of it.
Now, how long can Alan drive? He must be very close to his maximum allowable time.
I'm sure the boys have worked it out. They called me in, so I guess they've worked it right out to the limit, and I'd say that they'd be right on the limit. He'll be in the car the rest of the time, and I don't think he'll have to come in. They've worked it right out to the last gallon, as far as I know.
So Alan will be staying out there and trying to get back second and maybe even first, which he had in those early laps of the race.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Alan Brown, back to you in the tower.
Thank you, Evan Green. Alan Brown, who certainly doesn't overestimate his ability.
Very refreshing, actually, isn't it?
Yes, quite delightful. But he's in it for fun. The idea of getting involved in motor racing was, as he said, for fun. Then all of a sudden, he wound up being in a team of winners.
Chopper shot from the Ricard Commodore, and now the race cam shot from inside the Marlborough Dealer Team car 5. Peter Brock, can you hear us?
Sure can, Evan.
Peter, Gary Wilkinson, how's the car going?
Oh, beautiful. I'll just tell you what's happening here. I'm pulling about 6 behind. Whoops, it's jumping off the ground. Coming to the hump. Oh, it's right up the air. Brakes on at 350. Back to third. Oil's 115 degrees C. Outside, hovering around about 130.
Thank you, Peter. We have a slight problem there of picking Peter up. You could hear him talking away to us. I would think the most satisfying moment for Peter so far has been just to get that extra lap up on the number 43 Mazda, give himself that buffer. However, the race continues with Brocky out in front and the Marlborough Holden Dealer Team running 1-2 and looking good.
Amazing man, really, isn't he, Peter Brock? You can see there that he's driving so hard and at the same time so smoothly, and that's really what makes him, when he's got the right machinery around him, almost unbeatable. Of course, there are plenty of laps to go yet here in the great race, but oh, there's one of those trucks for 1982.
Never ceases,
49 laps to go.
Never ceases to amaze me, Gary, that you can interrupt a professional sportsman at work. One could just imagine walking onto the centre court and wanting to have an in-depth interview with John McEnroe.
You can't have an in-depth interview with McEnroe off the court.
You can't talk to him when he arrives at an airport. But these marvellous sportsmen who are so underestimated. But let's recap what has happened here. We have, looks like 44.
Paul Jones, Bob Skelton, Mazda RX-7 off the top somewhere. No, off the straight.
Just to go back for a moment, and then you interrupt during a race, the most important race of the year in Australia, the James Hardy 1000 Classic. What I was trying to draw out of Bill France is the fact that American stock car drivers will not talk back to commentators during telecasts, and yet these two gentlemen, Peter Brock, Larry Perkins, of course Dick Johnson, and remarkable John French, can talk back to us in the biggest scrap during the race, make a lot of common sense and still remain cool. Let's go to the pits now and check out the action with Evan Green.
Clive Benson-Brown in the pits. Car 11 with Charlie O'Brien has just gone out. What's been the problem, Clive?
We're very short of front brakes, Evan. The car just won't stop coming down this Conrod Straight. It just won't stop. So I put some more brake fluid in, and hopefully it'll be okay now.
Anything to do with your crash the other day?
No, not at all. It's just the fluid's expanded for some reason. It's just not stopping.
It's terribly fast out there and very hot and hard work.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars on the road. There's a lot of accidents. There's a lot of trucks, and it's very hard and slippery. But it's getting better now because there's less and less cars on the road. The trucks have cleared. It's getting clear towards the end now, so it'll be a good run home to the finish.
All the fright you're getting, your hair will turn straight.
Yeah.
Clive Benson-Brown, the man that went backwards off Conrod Straight on Thursday. They worked like the devil to repair the car, having troubles, but they're still out there and running, which is great to see. Big Charlie O'Brien in the car at the moment. Coming up the top of Mountain Straight, taking the right-hand sweep through GTX Bend 05. Dealer Team Commodore Peter Brock at the helm. At the helm in the race as well. About a lap and a half clear of nearest rival. That's teammate Johnny Harvey. And Harves himself has got
we've had one in trouble. One of the Ricard cars. Is that the Alan Grice car or the Rogers car? That Tommy drama has struck. Well, it certainly has for the Ricard team. We'll try and pick that area up for you in just a moment. As Peter Brock goes through, heading to the top of the mountain and McPhillamy Park. Over the top of the mountain through McPhillamy Park. Man who can usually put together the big ones end to end. The cars stay together underneath him, and that just about happens to be all the time. Peter Brock looking good for another James Hardy 1000 victory here at Mount Panorama today. We still have a considerable way to go in the 1982 race. But at the moment, things looking good for the Marlborough Holden dealer team. They're running 1-2. Brock out front, Harvey playing rear gunner, but he's a lap down. Terry Lee, our chopper pilot, Doug Hampson on camera. Show you the aerial shot at last time across the top of the mountain as Brock hits Conrod straight away. Clear windscreen.
Brock in 05, race leader. Where is Alan Grice? That's the question. Car 31 is in the pits. David Hobbs handing over again to Jim Richards, I suspect. Frank Gardner, crew chief there in the white cloth cap. What a great driver he was. Now running this BMW team. Hobbs is out, yes. Jim Richards, the taciturn New Zealander, who's driven so many times here before to victory in partnership with Peter Brock, switching this year to the BMW. Well, there's Grice. He's just gone past our commentary position here in pit straight, so he might have had a spin out and has got going again, but it's going to cost him valuable time.
We'll be able to check the time difference to see whether in fact it was Gary Rogers or Alan Grice. Down to the pits. Take it away, Evan Green.
Well, the number 8 Falcon.
David Hobbs spending a lot of time trying to get the seatbelts right. Jim Richards now just finally in place. They've been cleaning the windscreen, but it's been very much a stop to change over to get the driver comfortable. David Hobbs is here. You're running in 6th place, David. How's it out there?
Well, it's fine except for that truck. I do find that a little off-putting in a major race like this. That truck goes... And other than that, the track's in pretty good shape. There's a few rocks lying around, but there's no oil. The only thing is seems to be a certain lack of ability on the driver from England's part in making the damn thing stop. I don't know what's wrong with me or the car or both of us, but I just can't stop that car.
Is it a harder race than last year?
Well, we've gone... Not really, no. The weather's nice. It's although it's sunny and quite warm, it's not too warm because the air temperature's pretty low, actually. With the window open, it's not too bad, although it gets hot in there like most race cars. Everything's been pretty uneventful, really, except for me sliding off at the end of the main straight and the end of the pit straight.
Did you give any particular instructions or advice to Jim before he took over?
No, I didn't. We were too busy putting the lap straps on, really, and there's nothing to tell him. There's nothing wrong with the car in particular that I can warn him about, and there's nothing on the track. They've just moved the last wreckage away, so there's nothing for him really to look out for.
Can you improve on 6th position?
Well, Jim might be able to pull up another place. I'm not quite sure how far behind we are.
Right, well, you can check with the team manager. In the meantime, I'll have a quick word with Frank Gardner. We had Stephen Brook crash up there. What happened, Frank? We thought it looks like he got onto the marbles on the edge of the track in car 41.
It's a bit of a mistake with learning the rules of the road, really. Stephen was being a bit too courteous and got offline to let faster car through and got himself out onto the rubber that all the cars leave, and it's like driving on a load of ball bearings once you get offline.
Right,
and this is why you sometimes see a fast car held up with a slow car, because if you have the experience, you don't move over. Right. In some places, and Stephen moved over just in a wrong place. Unfortunate, but it's cost us a motor car.
A
like due to inexperience and too much courtesy. Back to you.
Thank you, Evan Green. The James Hardy 1000 continues at Mount Panorama, Bathurst. We'll be back in a moment.
When car number 8, the Wilmington Griffin Falcon, retired, it was with engine trouble. So they opened up the engine to find out what the reason was. Under each valve, there is a washer. There's 16 of these in the engine. And what they found was some like this that were left. The engine had just chewed them up and eaten them. And what you don't see here wound up going out the exhaust pipe. This was in the cylinder head. A little, maybe a 10-cent item has forced this car to retire. Had too much work to replace, so it's parked for want of a washer. Reminds one of the old saying that for want of a nail, the shoe was lost, for want of a shoe, the battle was lost, and for want of a battle, the war was lost. Back to the box.
Thank you very much, Chris Economaki. On the track, 05 Peter Brock, still the race leader, a lap and a half clear of teammate Johnny Harvey in car 25. It's a further 1 minute 25 seconds. Car 2 is in the pits, Masterton's car. They've got up to 8th place, you know, with Bruce Stewart at the wheel now, and about to hand back to Steve Masterton for the concluding stages of the race. Refuel, tyres, and a driver change there. There's Gricey going through in 3rd place. 2 laps down on the race leader, Peter Brock, at the present time. And Gricey is 21 seconds clear of Alan Moffat, car 43 of the Stuyvesant Mazda, in 4th place.
Well, he's trying very hard indeed, Alan Grice, keeping in mind that John Harvey took that gap and opened it up. There's 44. It's going nowhere. Being pushed up the mountain, out of harm's way.
It was the second Recar Commodore we caught that glimpse of before too, Mike, involved in that spin. It's back and running as well.
There's Gricey, now back on the wheel. Sitting right behind him, though, is Captain Peter Jansen.
The car running second in the 3-litre class, the Capri, car 50, Barry Seaton, is in the pits for a driver change. Fuel, tyres. Ran out of fuel, in fact, and had to be pushed up pit lane. Barreling down Conrod Straight. Alan Grice, he's got some distance to make up if he's to recapture the head of this race from the dealer team. Peter Brock in 05, Johnny Harvey in 25. The 3-litre class in this race currently being led by car 56, the Nissan Bluebird. Masahiro Hasimi, his co-driver, Hoshino. Second place, the car that's currently in the pits with a driver change, car 50, Barry Seaton. Third place, car 54, Kant and Gross in a Capri. Then the escort of Holden and Bridges. Scott and Walton in a Celica. Hire, Lander in an Audi. Gulson, Linton in the Alpha. Scaife and Bailey in a Capri. Landers, Bailey are out of business. And Fanico and Goff in a Gemini.
Now, thanks again to Texas Instruments who join us for their first James Hardy 1000 Classic and providing a very unique scoring service here today. There's Alan Grice. Since taking over the car, we'll give you some time shortly on whether Grice is making any leeway on John Harvey, who is presently placed in second.
Minute 25 is the gap at the present time between Harvey and Grice. We'll keep an eye on that and see if it falls. I noticed Terry Shield in the Eurocars Mazda RX-7, who was expected to be one of the top running Mazdas in the race, is in the pits again.
He's driven well this week, Alan Grice. Really has impressed me. He's found some new confidence since linking with the Recar team. Infinitely better driving we've seen throughout the season, not only at Amaru Park, but also at Sandown, and here certainly in the James Hardy 1000 this year. Slower car waves to the outside. Grice takes the initiative straight down. That was the 35 Mazda RX-7.
Phil Alexander and Ron Gillard waving goodbye as Alan Grice whizzes by in pursuit of the 2 cars ahead of him in this great race.
Well, the Commodore, despite a problem that Grice mentioned early in the day, he was having a problem with the brakes, had to keep the brakes pumped all the time, and then eventually when he thought they were pumped up, he'd go for a jab, and sometimes he wouldn't have enough pedal there. To be able to overcome those problems, Alan Brown mightn't have been doing the same lap times as Alan Grice, but when he handed the car over, it was still running good, and they were still in a competitive position on the track. section there of the enormous crowd. Probably the biggest crowd that we've seen here for a James Hardie Classic. No crowd figures to hand as yet. But as I said earlier in today's telecast, Sandown Park was claiming 60,000 people for the recent Castrol 400. I wouldn't like to hazard a guess at what the crowd is here today, but it's certainly at least double that. I'm not saying there's 120,000 people here either. Heading up to GTX Bend, Alan Grice, the Recar Commodore number 4.
Mike, they're preparing for another pit stop over in the Marlborough dealer team area. I don't know what, and it looks like it's going to be another driver change. I don't know. Obviously, they may have to put Larry Perkins back in 05 just to ensure that Peter Brock doesn't overdrive the limit in this race. I thought they'd have calculated that fairly carefully. I didn't imagine that they'd change drivers twice. The view from the 7 chopper. Terry Lee and cameraman Doug Hampson.
Coming up behind the Citizen entry. Nowhere to pass there. You'll see the courteous driver move across for Alan Grice,
yes,
which he does.
Greg Topfer and co-driver Ken Matthews in that car. They've had a lot of trouble with it. They've spent an awful lot of time in and out of the pits today. Bad luck for them.
Grice gets another gear down, and Conrod straight. No traffic on there, so he's got it wide open all the way down. We have our pit unit down near the Marlborough pits. And as you can see, Larry Perkins
suited up, so he is going to swap for Brock again.
Well, Brock, of course, might be close to the limit on the time he can stay out there, or maybe he's just satisfied enough that Larry Perkins can hold the car together as well as he can. They might just drop in for a tyre change and some top up on some fuel, and then be able to run it all the way through to the finish.
Well, they're a lap and a half up, Mike, and I guess the car's running that well that they can afford to feel reasonably confident at this stage.
Well, the suggestion has been that the Mazdas, of course, can run one pit stop less, or the Allen MOFFAT Mazda unit, certainly. And to be in the pits for a minute or so, or just over a minute, and have something foul up on a driver change, is certainly going to open the field up again. We go back inside Peter Brock's car and our race cam unit as we head to the top of McPhillamy Park. You can see the bugs that spread themselves across the windshield during the day. They're driving through there, Brock, over the top of the mountain. I think from some of the camera car sequences today, you can see just how huge the crowd is around here at Mount Panorama.
And how fearful it is across this section of the track. You'd like to be any place but behind the wheel, where Peter Brock is right now. Spearing down this section of the track, left and right. The road as slippery as greased lightning at the moment, covered in rubber, dirt, traces of oil. At the top of Conrod Straight. And he really opens it up down here. Getting close to, if not over, although probably wouldn't be pushing it over at this stage, about 275 kilometres per hour.
As our race leader, Peter Brock, lap number 119, leads the James Hardie 1000. We believe Brock will be coming into the